Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today, I want to open the show with a discussion on the future of our country. Of course, looking back to look forward. And there is no better public intellectual in the contemporary sense about these issues than Mr. Dele Ogun, an author, lawyer, and a London-based public intellectual who is joining me from the UK for the first time on Inside Sources. Mr. Ogun, you are welcome to Inside Sources.
Laulu, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here.
Okay, excellent. So it's a conversation on the future of our country. So I'm just going to ask you the custom question that I open the conversation with my guest. That if you look at where Nigeria is today, and you have written a lot about what had happened in the past, do you think that we are heading to a destiny of greatness that many of us dream about our country?
That's a challenging question, but let me answer it this way. It was Winston Churchill who said, the further back you look, the further ahead you will see. History is the guide to what lies ahead. And the reason why I might be a little bit confident that we're beginning to face in the right direction is because of the works of history that have come out in recent times. We haven't written our story. It's only now that books such as the ones that I've been producing, we're now able to see how we got to where we are. Because it's like driving. If somebody drove you to a destination and you were sleeping through the journey, if you've never been to that location, you find yourself in a location and you're trying to find your way back. How'd you do it? Until such time as you look back or somebody gives you the tools to navigate back. That's how you can retrace your steps and now find the right direction. And I think that's where we are. There are books that have now come out that are telling the real story as far as Nigeria is concerned. And what they all point to is this, that where we are is not where we're supposed to be. And to get to where we are supposed to be, we need a fundamental, not cosmetic, we need a fundamental restructuring of the political arrangements. Fundamental. The current political order has passed its sell-by date. It has failed and it cannot get us to where we really want to be. So we have a choice. We'll either continue talking about potential, but I say potential is nothing without performance, without fulfillment. It's only realized potential that matters. You can have the potential to be the best footballer in the world, but if you can't get your boots on in the first instance, forget it. And so we've got to move from that discussion. Oh, we've got so much potential, we've got this, we've got that. 65 years since so-called independence, and people are still talking about potential. Now, as long as we continue with this current political structure, we're never going to get to where we belong. We will continue to tread water because that's what we've been doing. We've been running on the spot. It's like an athlete who's running on the travelator, as distinct from one who's actually running on the track.
Okay, very excellent opening remarks. I'm going to just take it forward from your comments and then I'll come back to some of the issues that I want us to talk about regarding some of your work and some of the things you found out. But before I do that, let me ask you, so specifically, what do you consider the most fundamental political shift or change that you think we need to embark upon to push us in the right direction? Mr. Dele?
Yeah, I'll break it down very simply. You start from what is wrong with this structure. What is wrong with this structure is that 371 previously self-governing ethnic groups, some large, some medium, some small, some tiny, but all were in charge of their own affairs, but thrown into a box, which Lugard and Co. called Nigeria. And they reduced what were 371 seats, they reduced it to 1 seat. And invited and set up a political order in which those 371 previously self-governing groups will compete for that one seat on a winner-takes-all basis.
Wow.
You could see just from that explanation, that is fundamentally, it cannot work, because the competition is do or die, because it's winner takes all. So the fundamental change that has to happen is that we've got to restore those 370 other seats, but still within the Nigeria family. That is the fundamental. So it doesn't matter how small or large your ethnic group is concerned, within the new Nigeria union and family, the value of each ethnic group is equal to one. It's like you're within a family, a biological family.
Right.
Yes. Every child, you can have 10 children or you can have one, but each only has a value of one.
Yeah.
Even if you're the tallest or you're the richest child, your value to your parents is still that one. And that's where we've got to get back to. So that is the structure that Nigeria needs to move to, away from the winner takes all, which only works where you've got people who are homogenous. Same heroes, same history, same language, and often the same faith. That works fine. You can do winner takes all in that setting. But where you've got distinct historical units, you must pay respect to and give dignity to each and every one of them. They will not always have the same size chair, but even Little Bear deserves the little seat, and Big Bear can have the big seat. Absolutely. And that makes for a happy union.
Excellent, excellent. So before we go back to what I really want us to focus on, don't you think that we should hold our current president responsible, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to ensure that that change takes place, looking at his antecedents and what he has advocated long before he became president? Shouldn't we expect that he will be able to sort out that problem, Mr. Dele?
Yeah, in theory, yes, because when you go back to what he claimed his credentials were in NADECO, he was a pro-democracy activist. But the reality of the political order, this is the point, is that it's designed to deceive the people. It's all designed to get them to the throne, but once they get to the throne, accountability disappears. I call what we have right now, what we're running with, an imperial system. Is worse than the presidential system.
It is.
Because the presidential system with Trump is still some degree of accountability, even if it's the press briefings he has every week with the media. There's somebody holding him to account. And there's a political opposition, effective political opposition holding him to account through the newspapers, etc. The parliamentary system is, of course, different. Our very own Kemi Badenoch is the one leading the opposition there. Every week, she's putting the prime minister under questioning on behalf of the people, under interrogation. What exactly are you doing? Why are you doing this? This policy is not working. But who holds the Emperor Tinubu to account? Because that's the political order they've given themselves. And I don't expect those who are benefiting from that imperial unaccountable arrangement, I don't expect them to legislate themselves out of office. They're too small-minded for that kind of thing. You would then be hoping for somebody who has some degree of class and magnanimity and a sense of patriotism on behalf of all peoples. No, it's not going to work. But it's the people that must demand it, and it must be led by the intellectual class.
Okay, excellent point. So going back to some of your works, publications, books, and even some visual stuff that you've done, excellent work about Nigeria's history. I want to ask you, what did you find the most intriguing? I want to share with our viewers some of the things that you find the most intriguing in some of the comprehensive research that you have embarked upon right there in the UK about, how this idea of Nigeria came together. What are the things that you find the most intriguing? Can you share with us, Mr. Ogun?
Yes, well, I guess the most intriguing is this, that the British who created Nigeria, who designed Nigeria, who, according to their narrative, were bringing civilization to Nigeria and other parts of Africa. What I found most intriguing was that they knew how systems work and how systems should work, but they did the very opposite.
Look at that.
They designed a system that was designed to arrest our development rather than to advance it. And that was intriguing because, of course, we all grew up and especially many of us who grew up in church, and we learned to never to tell lies, and always we were believers, were we not? And so when they are pushing the narrative of development, of civilization, you bought into it, only to find that when they were given the opportunity, when they had the opportunity, they did the opposite. Let me give you a very specific example. When I say they know what works and what will not work, and what they gave us is what will not work. They know that from their own history, how the Union of Britain, the United Kingdom, came together. They knew how they had to, it was only by marriage they were able to persuade Scotland to give up its sovereignty and join England in union. They knew that. And that was the basis of the success of the union that has sustained them ever since. They knew the difficulties that they had on the religious front in terms of trying to marry a Catholic country like Ireland with a Protestant country like England.
Yeah.
Even within England itself, they knew the crisis and the troubles that they had when England, which was once Catholic, now became Protestants. And within their own family of Henry VIII, two sisters tried to kill each other. One was Catholic, Mary, the one they called Bloody Mary, and the other, the younger sister, was Elizabeth. And they tried to kill each other on the basis of faith issues. And then when they come to the Nigeria space, they went out of their way to marry an Islamic half with a Christian half. And on top of that, without any sort of agreement between them, they just lumped them together. And then on top of that, what did they do? They introduced one man, one vote. Now, of course, everybody says, gosh, well, that's democracy, isn't it?
Yeah.
One man, one. But they knew that one man, one vote, universal suffrage, is that winner takes all system. That can work to the extent that you have enough in common with each other, such that the loser can accept governance from the winner's hands, on the basis that the loser's turn will come around soon. But they know that where the divide is so deep and huge, that system can never work. They also know that in order for one man, one vote to work, you can't have a system where you have the vast majority of people are below the poverty line, and also, through no fault of their own, seriously uneducated. Because what you then have that permanent inbuilt majority of the unfortunates. So those become the real electorate. And they know that once that situation arises, they are vulnerable to vote capture because you've forced them to live on the breadline. And it only takes a loaf of bread to take their votes. So they know what works, but they gave us the opposite. In parts of Africa where there were white settlers who had skin in the game, like East Africa, Kenya, Uganda, they did not do one man, one vote because they knew that the vast majority, again, were the uneducated and through no fault of their own, the impoverished. And they knew that that would affect the quality of life of those white settlers. So they restricted the franchise. You had to have a minimum property qualification and a minimum educational qualification. But because in Nigeria, their interest was merely to extract the resources from the country and return finished goods for us to consume, there was never going to be any productive capacity. So it didn't matter. You needed a system that would give you the worst form of governance, and that is one man, one vote across the board. And so you have your real electorate is the unfortunates. Now, that, of course, was intriguing.
Okay, I mean, very, very, very important point and insight that you are sharing with us. And you already started talking about this, but I want you to now go into a little bit more depth. So why do you think the British did this? And then what can you point to in history, based on your research, those who will be the culprits, who are the people that carried out this agenda? So it's a two-pronged question. Why, did they behave in that way? And who were the people that did it? And how did they accomplish this in real terms?
Yes, the why they did it is actually quite straightforward. Nigeria was a commercial project for them. What they came for was the resources in our land. Oil had been discovered in Nigeria, contrary to the narrative that they pushed, that it was discovered in Ulubiri in 1956. It has actually been discovered in 1908. They knew that the crude oil was there, quite aside from all the other resources. So the object was to access those resources. Now, it's like the relationship between the owner of goods and the thief, and the one who wants to buy the goods from the thief. The natural partnership is between the thief and the one who wants to buy the goods. So what does the one who wants to buy the goods do? He facilitates access to the resources for the thief. So it's to allow them to access the resources of the land. So you need a governance system that will be anti-Nigeria rather than pro-Nigeria, because a pro-Nigeria governance systems will protect and guard the resources. An anti-Nigeria governance system would make sure that those who would guard those resources, i.e. the people, are somehow incapacitated and debilitated, so their power is reduced, and maximum access is given to the one who wants the resources. So it's as simple as that. It's an economic game. They having secured the Nigeria space through the force of arms that they had, it was then a question of protecting their investment. And to protect your investment in those kind of circumstances, you give them the name leaders, but they're really managers. They're caretakers of your resources. And your caretakers are those ones who will give you access to the resources when you want it, rather than those who will lock you out and say, no, the resources are for us, those of us inside. So that's the why. In terms of the how was it done? It was done through a systemic, carefully thought through plan of action. The mass amalgamation was part of the process, because they know that once you lump groups together, 371 ethnic groups together, they will be jostling between themselves. The 371 inmates will be jostling between themselves, and there'll be no consensus. And that will allow them access. That's a key part of the how. The second part of the how was actually all those constitutional conferences that our people talk about. The 1959 Constitutional Conference, and the Lancaster House. What emerges from my research was that we were just being played. All our laws and the Enahuros and the Azikiwe, all the rooms were bugged. That's why the constitutional conferences were in London. Everything that they were thinking and planning to say, they already knew in advance. And they chaired those constitutional conferences.
So they were spying on Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Dr. Azikwe, and all the other people. As those talks were going on, you have research findings to say that the British were spying on them.
Absolutely. I mean, thankfully, one of their men who had a conscience, his name was Harold Smith. He was a British colonial officer. He got into trouble with his own government because he blew the whistle. He spilled the beans. He wasn't supposed to.
Right.
But he was a man of conscience and he saw what was going on and said, well, we can't do this to these people. You know? And so he wrote the book exposing all of this. But they had told him that book would never be published because they tried to bribe him with a knighthood and a generous pension. But as I say, he was a man of conscience. He refused to play along. So they told him, you write the book, we'll make sure it's never published. And it wasn't published until just before his end. He managed to get it to some of us. And we got him to the recording studio because we needed it for posterity. You know, our people, our confidence has been so damaged that when our own come out and tell us this is what happened, do you know it's the Nigerians, especially the educated ones, who will fight you to the last to say, no, it did not. So we knew that what we had to do was get the man himself into the studio such that they can hear it directly. But even then, some of diehards still say, oh, no, he's lying, etc. I mean, this is a chap who the price that he paid for telling us that story was that they told him you would never get another job in your life. The guy was an Oxford man. He read PPE at Oxford. Brilliant man. But he never got another job from the age of, I think it was about age 30.
Wow. So this happened, just before or after independence?
This was the independence. Okay. In the book, the Harold Smith story,
right?
He exposed the rigging. He exposed how the British, because this was part of their plan, they got everybody out to come and vote, just like the modern managers,
right,
masquerading as leaders. They get everybody out come and vote because you need the appearance of legitimacy. And they got them out to come and vote, but they had rigged the outcome to make sure that the caliphates would rule, because that was always the plan. That was always the plan. So therefore, keep the troubles, the ones who will protect the resources, keep them away from power. Keep Paolo away from power. Keep Enaro away from power. That was the plan.
Interesting. There is a claim that I'm going to ask you to comment on, that there are even those in the British establishment who clearly understood that if you let somebody like Chief Obafemi Awolowo become the prime minister, that this agenda of which you speak would have been truncated. For which reason, they did everything to ensure that somebody like Obafemi Awolowo did not emerge. How do you respond to that claim?
Well, it's correct, and it's logical and easy to understand. Because sometimes our people, we don't think in business terms. If you've established a business, a very profitable business, and you're thinking of who's going to take over, and you've got amongst your family, let's say you've got 2 children, one is a spendthrift, and the other one is the one that's going to move the enterprise forward. You're going to make sure that the spendthrift, you've studied them very well. You know the qualities. You know the qualities of each child. and you know which one is going to get there to keep the enterprise going, and which one is going to endanger the enterprise. As it is in business, so it is in politics. So therefore, when it comes to the power game, when they were being forced to leave by the Americans, their strategy now switched to who's going to take the baton from us, such that although we are nominally leaving, in substance, we wouldn't be leaving. We will still continue to enjoy the benefits as if we were still there. So all the candidates for power were carefully analyzed. And the difference between an Awolowo and a Balewa was stark and clear. But there were arrangements in such that the one who's not going to endanger their interests is the one that was going to get power. And this decision had been made as far back as, I mean, the detailed planning started in around about the early 1930s for the succession of the caliphate, the Fulani in particular. The planning started way back then. But even the strategic planning started much earlier. It started at the creation of Nigeria. You see, that area, which was the Sokoto Empire, that strip at the top, which are now the Sharia states, they were actually supposed to go to France. And this is one of the points that I made in the book, Culprits. It was supposed to go to France. But the British insisted that they must have that territory. And they bought the French off by doing a territorial swap. They gave them Madagascar in return for keeping the Sokoto Empire. Because otherwise the Sokoto Empire was supposed to be part of Niger, French Niger. And the reason that deal was done, and why the British, Joseph Chamberlain was the colonial secretary at the time, and the treaty under which the deal was done was 14th of June, 1898. You can see just before 1900, when Nigeria was formally created. That was the treaty under which the Sokoto Empire came into what became Nigeria.
And that was even before the amalgamation, Mr. Ogun.
Because these are long-term planners, you see. The planning, the strategic planning, all started around the Berlin Conference.
In 1885.
Yes, 1884 to 1885.
Right.
They were already planning. They had marked out the space. And like good strategists and good business people, you plan not for the next 2 years. You're planning for the next 50. You're planning for the next 100 years. And you're putting the blocks in place that will enable the realization of your bigger agenda. You need the partners. It's all about partnership. Who are going to be our partners?
Interesting. I want us to begin to conclude, and I wanted to put out another claim and check it with what your own research findings was. Now, so there is the claim also that it was actually the British that encouraged the long-time military rule that happened soon after 1966, after the Nzeogu coup. There's the claim that the British were the ones that actually encouraged the military to take over power from that point. How do you respond to that claim based on your research?
The evidence is there in my book, Culprits. It is very clear that the plan was to shut down the parliamentary system. And that plan had been decided upon before even independence. There's a book written by H.O. Davis, titled Nigeria, The Prospects for Democracy. It was written in 1959. H.O. Davis was very close to the British establishment. And in there, when you read that book, you'll find the roadmap from shutting down the parliamentary system because they said that the level of development, the parliamentary system was too sophisticated for Nigeria's level of development. And they pointed to places like Burma and Pakistan, where the parliamentary system had given way. And they explained in that book the process by which it gave way. Military intervention, military rule, period military rule. I went further to explain that when you now come out of military rule, you move to the presidential system, because the presidential system is closer to the colonial system. You see, you have that president at the top, all powerful, is a bit like colonial rule. Whereas parliamentary system, there's too much accountability. As I pointed out earlier in discussion, what Badenoch is doing in Parliament, holding the incumbents who are, they didn't want that. And so it was no surprise that we went through precisely the hoops and in the precise sequence mapped out in that book. Parliamentary system was shut down by military intervention, military rule. And when we now came out in 1979, as I explained in the book, in fact, at the so-called Constitutional Conventional Conference, I think they expressly ruled out the young ones, his name now, he said that they were told not to consider the parliamentary system.
Interesting. Interesting. I recollect that, there has been claims that it was the military that actually insisted on the on the presidential system for 1978, 79, because in their own logic, as it was expressed then, that will give Nigeria the opportunity, if you have an executive president, then it could create a situation that we will begin to see ourselves as one nation. And you are arguing that based on your research, that plan for presidential system has actually been long in the works. That's what you are saying, sir.
Absolutely. And, the idea that it was coming from the military didn't have the intellectual capability for those kind of ideas. They were not political scientists. The ideas were coming from Westminster.
Wow.
And it's the way these things work. And so, I think it was Professor Ango Abdullahi. He was a young man at that time. I said it in the book, Culprits. He said they were told, and they were surprised, that he said that we expected a discussion of why the parliamentary system failed and the lessons to be learned from there. And they were told, forget parliamentary. We're not discussing that at all. It's presidential system. So all they were left with in 1979 or 1978 was to look at the French presidential system and to look at the American presidential system. That was the only thing, because that was the plan even before independence.
Okay.
So this unitary structure that we have was always the agenda. And the imperial system that we've now got is now taken back to Lugard's rule, because Tinubu might as well be Lugard. You could not ask Lugard any questions as to what he's up to.
Interesting.
No different.
Yeah. Last question because of our time. And Mr. Ogun, you have to come back, over and again to discuss these issues because they are very compelling. But last question for today. So what is, and I think you've written a book, A Fatherless People, among some of the many of your publications. What is the way for us specifically, in specific terms, to get out of this? And then when we even have that resolve and the opportunity to get out of this, what kind of system should we have? Please conclude in a summary, that question, and then we wrap up.
Yes, very simply. You see, a problem understood is a problem solved. The reason we've been running around in circles and running 4x4 every election, 4x4, and ending up lamenting after 4 years or after 8 years, is because we never really understood the problem. The reason why I said at the beginning there's more reason to be hopeful now is that we've understood the problem. And with that understanding, my fatherland group has devised the solution, which is the Orange Union solution, that restores the dignity of each and every ethnic group, remembering that as at 1900, all of these ones had self-governance. They all had it. It's restored that dignity. Now, how do we get there? It's only a question of now numbers. How many people you share the understanding. It's the way the missionaries did their work. It's 12 of them, 12 of them and a leader now transformed the world. But if they kept their understanding just to themselves, it was a matter of spreading it through media like this. Once we're all on the same page, it's like a choir. You find that it becomes more harmonious, less dissenting voices, because now we've got a clear way forward. And the way forward is the way back. Restore the dignity of the ethnic groups, take away this winner takes all, do or die kind of politics, which is only suitable for those who have the same history, same language, same faith, same heroes. Restore the dignity. In my father's house, there are many rooms, is what the Bible says, and the Quran speaks the same language.
Absolutely.
There's room for all of us. It requires just mutual respect. And that is what the Orange Union solution offers. That is the way forward.
Thank you so much, Mr. Deleogun, for your contributions and those insights. Like I said, we must find opportunity to come back to this often and again, because I agree with you entirely. And that is why I'm here, actually, on that kind of orange solution of which you speak, to get this kind of analysis, information to the point that we all become like a choir. Now, once we get that, I have no doubt also that we'll be able to turn around the system. Thank you so much for your voice. Thank you for the work that you do. And thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thanks very much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
And that was a segment on Nigeria's independence. Now, we're going to be going into conversations that I have with two of the university teachers groups that we have in Nigeria. We have the CONUA and ASU. We're going to be starting a conversation with both of them, one after the other. Today, we're going to hear from the president of CONUA, that is the Congress of Nigerian University Academics, and on the Sunday edition, we will have the conversation with the president of ASU. Inside Sources will be right back.